Hello everyone, welcome back to Naismith Gaming. Today I'm not actually going to be playing Wrath of the Righteous. I'm just going to be going over all of the classes and discussing them. And I invite you to consider classes in role-playing games. These portraits are from a mod for Kingmaker. Oh, I'm not going to play this character, I'm just showing you the classes, getting to it. I'll just pick them. So, in role-playing games, there is a trinity of Fighter, Mage, Thief. The guy who fights, the guy who who does the technical magics that do weird things, and the sneaky person. This game has so many classes that quite a few of them are hybrids of them. They even have a difficulty marker for the classes. Okay, the first class that is available is the Alchemist. Their primary powers are the bombs and the mutagens and the extracts. The bombs are a ranged area of effect attack that they can use a limited number of times per day. Mutagens are a buff that they can use for a little while each day. These give heavy boosts to their physical abilities, while spell extracts are basically a potion-based spellcasting system. Hold on, I'm just picking a Okay. Each of these archetypes changes them a little bit. Grenadiers focus on the bombs. Chirurgeons focus on their healing powers. Metamorphs focus on transmutations. Vivisectionists trade out the bombs in exchange for a rogue's sneak attack, making them in essence a better rogue except for the traps thing. And I'm not actually that familiar with this class, so I'm not going to go too deep into any of the archetypes, but each one changes how the class plays a little bit. The primary focuses are, as I've said before, bombs, mutagens, and spell extracts, which are basically potion forms. They also have another ability called discoveries, which they can use for, say, infusion, to allow them to give their extract to other people, thus effectively turning them into spellcasters instead of stealth buffers. You can either focus on the bombs, or you can focus on mutagens and extracts. I have heard this class described in my tabletop version, in my tabletop community, as screw base attack bonus, stack buffs. The Alchemist doesn't care about how it's only a medium progression class for attack bonus. They just stack all sorts of bonuses like bark skin or heroism or anything like that, and just move their stats through the roof. Then there's the Arcanist. This is a spellcaster class. Basically gets a few tricks to go with their power. I'm going to skip ahead to the Sorcerer and the Wizard. They are also arcane casters. Oh, and the Witch. They are all arcane casters who each have a few tricks to go alongside their spellcasting. In the case of the Arcanist, their main gimmick is that they prepare spells and then cast them spontaneously, meaning they can decide, I know Magic Missile and Shield today, And then the next day, they can cast Shield and Magic. Well, then that day they can cast in any combination they want. The next day they can not know Shield at all, instead know Mage Armor. Whereas the Sorcerer has more spells than the Arcanist, but they can't switch out their spells nearly so readily. While the Wizard can control how many of each spell they have, but have a bit less control over it. While the Witch gets fewer. It's basically a wizard, but gets fewer spells per day, or one fewer per day, because the wizard gets an arcane school. But the witch gets hexes, which are basically curses that you can apply, like slumber, to make an opponent sleep. Basically, all of those are support classes, each with a slight focus in something else with their archetypes, though the archetypes don't really change them that much. Although the wizard can focus heavily on blasting with Arcane Bomber, or Scroll Savants can refocus on using their using magic scrolls. Ooh, this one, avoid this one, I say, because you get two schools that are outright banned. The wizard, of those 4 classes, the wizard specializes in knowledges, while the witch specializes more in nature-based skills, while the sorcerer is far more social, and the arcanist stop showing me. Show me their skills. Okay, I'm just gonna max this out so I can, show this. Arcanist is basically a wizard in that they get the knowledge skills. Arcanist goes heavily into intelligence, but they have the class feature, the Arcane Reservoir, which uses Charisma. While the Witch is pure intelligence. The Wizard is pure intelligence. And the Sorcerer is pure Charisma for their... unless they are Imperial, in which case they are Wisdom-based. And Sages, who are basically slightly more wizardy, in which case they use Intelligence. But they all use a similar spell list. The Witch uses a slightly different one and has access to healing, but slightly less utility, but except for healing. Or slightly less power in exchange for healing. So basically, they are the 4 utility casters. Pure utility. Wizard is the most versatile. Witch gets spammable hexes, as rather versatile. Sorcerer gets the most spells, while Arcanist gets the versatility of a wizard, well, the versatility of a witch anyway, and the spontaneous casting of the Sorcerer. Barbarian. This is a the rage powers are the big issue with this class, and by issue I mean the big problem you have when leveling up. As in, they're the big thing that you have to decide on. You can't find the rage powers from here, but it basically amounts to they get to focus on a few different aspects of their berserk rages, which they basically just boost their strength through the roof and just try to kill the enemy before they die. Do heavy damage, take heavy damage. That's the Barbarian. Let's see, they can work on being more animal-like, they can wear better armor, or they can work on taking less damage. The Bards. These are medium casters, not getting as good of spells as the big casters I'd talked about before. But they get area of effect buffs for the party, called Bardic Performances. And they get a whole lot of skills. Like, as they level up, they will get all skills as options. Oh, no, sorry. They start that way. They also get bonuses to knowledges and wars. They are the jack-of-all-trades class. That's entirely what they're supposed to do. They also get some various side benefits. The Blood Rager is Barbarian with a few spells, but not many. And that's basically it. Cavalier. What if I were a mounted warrior? They have some mobility problems while indoors, but outside they're fast and powerful. They have a devastating charge attack, and that's basically the class. They're cavalry, and they serve that role. Mobile attackers. Okay. The Cleric and the War Priest, and the Paladin. I'm going to cover all of these together, along with the Oracle. This is how intertwined they are. They are the Holy Warriors. The War Priest specializes in buffing is a medium caster, meaning they get up to level 6 spells before counting anything mythic. They get ways to boost their weapons and armor in exchange for not having as good of spell casting as the Cleric. Whereas the Paladin basically gets the second best weapons and armor behind the Fighter, who I will cover later. And they basically get to focus on healing or protecting or all that. They are the champions of good. Whereas all the other classes, whereas the War Priest, Oracle, and Cleric are only bound to their deity. Oracle is not actually bound to a deity. Whereas Paladins are bound to specific codes. The Oracle is basically a channel for power. They have a blessing, which gives them power, and a curse, which drains their, which basically nerfs them. They're mystery, not blessing. The mystery can be things like battle, or fire, or the base game. Let me check what their, Okay, Blackened, Demonic, Hellbound, Blame, Plague. Oh, these are the curses. Basically, they can take various penalties, like in exchange for minor blessings, like getting penalties to attack rolls, but getting better fire spells. There are mysteries, such as, say, Flame, or Bones, which gives them some necromancy. Battle, which gives them extra buffs, like enlarge. Oh, those are quite right. Until Righteous Might, those are mostly actually it's just Enlarged Person and Mass Enlarged Person that aren't on the Divine list normally. But their mysteries can give them spells that they don't normally get. While the Cleric, they basically get passable armor, not that great. But they get lots of healing powers. It says they have no melee combat, but if you pick someone like Iomade, take the war domain. Here, I'll show you. Then you gain bonus combat feats and combat bonuses, which makes them actually quite a bit better in combat. The good domain is overpowered simply because you're fighting evil. And they get other things like these. Of note is Crusader, which focuses on combat. Oh, for the Cleric, they get 3 abilities: Combat, Spellcasting, and Channel Energy. Channel Energy to heal the entire party, or damage the entire enemy party. Or a Spellcasting, of course. It is very difficult to make a build that does all 3. That does all 3 well, that is. Pick 2. You can either be very good at spellcasting and able to fight. You can be very good at spellcast. You can be a sage who's very good at spellcasting and also very good at channeling, like Tristan from Kingmaker. Or you can be very good at fighting and decent at channeling. Though, if you don't particularly care about channeling, then I'd like to introduce you to the War Priest, who doesn't care about charisma nearly so much. The Cleric is more social, getting decent persuasion. Whereas the Oracle is also social, but more knowledgeable. Which just means the Oracle is a divine wizard of sorts. The Paladin is meant to lead and inspire, so they are also quite social. Okay, they're all quite social. I'm just going to say they're all quite social. Yeah, they're all social. And because this is a role-playing game, that means that is a bonus. Next up is the Druid, who is officially a Divine Caster, though in 2nd edition Pathfinder this was changed to Primal. They are basically shapeshifters who spellcast and fight. Much like how the Cleric chooses between spellcasting, combat, and channeling, the Druid gets to choose between combat, spellcasting, and an animal companion. If they don't pick an animal companion, then they get better spellcasting. If they pick an animal companion, then they get better at combat. And they can pick shape-shifting. Basically, they can only focus on 2 at a time. They have difficulty doing more than that. That said, there is a reason the word Cleric or Druidzilla exists. Or Codzilla. Next class, the Fighter. Their shtick is that they just get lots of feats. They have good combat, good defense, and they make for good switch hitters. They're the only class I know of that can be very good at both melee and ranged. The Mutation Warrior snags the mutagen from Alchemist. And they can focus on 2 hands or 2-handed weapons, or on defense, Ultimately, it comes down to Fighter is the one where you want to be very, very good at fighting. and be able to pick and choose your style. Since they have so many combat feats to spare, you should probably spend some on Lightning Reflexes and Iron Will to boost your worst saves. The Hunter is a hybrid between Ranger and Druid, which basically means they have an animal companion and some nature magic. Weakened, they're a medium caster, whereas the Druid is a full caster. And they're basically meant to be archers. Speaking of archery, returning to the fighter, although they can be archers, there are other classes specialized in archery that I would recommend instead. Inquisitor. Much like the War Priest, this is a combat-oriented divine class. They are, like the Bard, a jack of all trades. Their specialties are in solo tactics, which means they basically get teamwork feats without their allies having to use those. Teamwork feats actually are rather powerful, and they basically get Judgments and Bane weapon, which basically gives them good bonuses for in combat and for taking down particular enemies. Temporary bonuses in combat. I'll come back to Kineticist much later. Magus. An Arcane Inquisitor. And they're an Arcane Inquisitor. They are not tied to a particular deity, and they specialize in combining spell and sword. Or, in the case of the Eldritch Archer, spell and bow. The Eldritch Scion is a spontaneous version. The Hexcrafter combines this with the Witch powers. They are the only arcane class that gets both armor and spellcasting. Their primary abilities are the Spell Combat, Spell Strike, and Arcane Pool. They use this for some niche abilities, and by niche I mean pick a few Magus abilities that you know you'll use to boost your Spell Combat and Spell Strike, and watch how quickly you use it. Spell Strike allows them to attack with using their weapon with a spell. That is to say, a normal character who casts, say, Shocking Grasp would then have to actually grasp their opponent. The Magus can simply charge their sword with the electricity and then zap the enemy with it. This is actually the default build in the tabletop game. Just give them a rapier or a scimitar with the highest critical hit rate, and then watch as the spell now enjoys the tripled critical hit threat rate, or sextupled crit threat rate if you manage to get the keen property on it. Yeah! The Magus is a crit fishing class. Give them just give them the most powerful critical weapon that you can, and watch them slaughter the enemy. Spell Combat. This is a truly unique power. This is theirs and theirs alone. Some abilities might come close to poaching this in the tabletop game, but Spell Combat? Oh, this is all theirs. No one else gets to both attack and cast a spell like that. The Magus can cast a spell, then use their free action to attack with their weapon, using Spell Strike, and if they miss and hold the charge, they can attack again. In the tabletop, at least. I'm not sure if they get to hold the charge here. But the point is, they get extra attacks at small. They dual wield. They alone get to dual wield spell and sword. The monk is basically a mobile fighter with... Wait. They lowered the monk's will save. They're using Unchained. Oh, they're using Unchained. Okay. Okay. The monk basically specializes in unarmed combat. They get mobility bonuses and flurry of blows, which is their... I'm gonna have to go over here to look at flurry of blows. Okay, they basically get to dual wield with themselves. That's to say, they get extra attacks. Oh right, I was getting confused with the not Unchained version. It basically gives them full base attack, honorary base full base attack bonus, but they already have that, so this is just extra attacks at full power. The big thing is Zen Archer instead specializes in archery. One of the companions, Lan, is a Zen Archer, and yeah, it changes the class, but normally I don't think that archetypes do much of use, that is. But Zen Archer, that's actually just an entirely new class. Ranger. This is basically a fighter with weaker armor, but the combat styles make it more able to pursue archery or dual wielding, because it removes the requirement for certain ability scores, even if they are usually available only to other classes. They can also get an animal companion. They're basically a skirmisher class. Especially, I recommend choosing archery with them. And they also get the favored enemy, and I think there's supposed to be a favored terrain option. Oh, but that's a later level. So you can get bonuses versus your target enemies. Then there's the Rogue, which is a sneaky class that basically specializes in flanking and doing lots and lots of bonus damage. And they get a few extra talents and a whole bunch of skills. Oh, speaking of skills, the Ranger also gets quite a few skills. I missed doing that. Then the Eldritch Scoundrel archetype for Rogue basically gives them access to spellcasting, which is the main big change. And that's an archetype that actually does fully rework the class, as far as I can tell. And it's one of the good ones. Skald. Basically a bard, only they're more barbarian oriented. Shaman. Basically a druid with witch powers instead of a few of the regular powers, regular druid abilities. They get the hexes, which is a big draw, and they have divine casting. They're a versatile class. Healer and harming. Haven't actually played much of a shaman. Slayer is basically a ranger who's more urban focused. Basically a rogue. Basically rogue meets ranger with a few fighter influences. The marshals don't actually they use talents, sort of like rogue talents, and there's quite a few overlaps in the base game, in the base tabletop game. Slayers actually have the option to pick rogue talents. Can't say I know too much about Tal'Dorei Sword Lord, other than their dueling probably isn't too much use. Oh, defensive parry. Looks like it'd be a oh, it looks like it's an armor class tank. Student of War, looks like it's basically just a skill-based fighter. It's a lore-based fighter, a specialist. Duelists, meanwhile, are armor class tanks again. Mobile. More mobile than the Sword Lords. I'm gonna come back to Theurge. Hell Knight Signifer. Arcane Armor Training. Avoid it. Warrior Priest. That'd probably be the War Priest class. Oh no, that's a feat. Meant for battle clerics. Basically, it's a combat caster class. Looks like. Yep. Eldritch Knight. This is basically fighter wizards, or paladin wizards, or considering paladins use charisma, paladin sorcerers. The key here is arcane caster, which basically means they have the arcane training issue. Third level spells means they must be at least a wizard 5 or a sorcerer 6, or arcanist 6 or witch 5, or a bard 7, bard or skald 7, that is. Plus 1 level more for martial weapons. Basically, they're Magus before Magus existed. They don't get these special bonuses dedicated for both, rather they're meant to flex between the two. Dragon Disciple. This is basically an Eldritch Knight, only specialized for dragon-blooded sorcerers. Or for Maguses of the Magi of the Eldritch Scion archetype with the dragon bloodline, like Rigongar from Kingmaker. Basically, they get dragon powers to augment their slightly reduced spellcasting and their slightly reduced base attack bonus. The Lore Master gets some niche powers. I'm not actually familiar with the class, because prestige classes usually are not worth it. Assassin is a buffed rogue, or sort of buffed. I'm actually pretty sure that you'd be better off just going flat rogue. Stalwart Defender. The class that Valerie is building towards in Kingmaker. Basically, they specialize in being the frontline tank. Just give them as high armor class bonus as you possibly can, and let them draw all the aggro. Arcane Trickster. This is for rogue wizards, rogue sorcerers, or for Eldritch Tricksters. Or for Eldritch Scoundrels. They basically just get bonuses to spellcasting and sneaking. Sort of like the Eldritch Knight is a fighter mage, is a rogue mage. The Hell Knight. Heavy armor, persuasion, base attack bonus. This is a fighter. This is a fighter improvement. This is basically a paladin light because they get smite chaos. Their armor training basically means it's meant to go up there with fighter. Which basically means it's a it's meant to be a fighter who gives up some of their combat feats in exchange for getting bonuses against chaotic beings. Which, since this is a demon fighting campaign, could be worth it. Winter Witches. Basically, if you're playing a witch and want to focus on ice magic, just make sure to get something that boosts your ice magic so that no one manages to resist you. Okay. Mystic Theurge. This is the hybrid casting. This is basically a cleric wizard or a cleric imperial sorcerer, or an oracle sorcerer, or the whole point of the Mystic Theurge is that you're combining divine and arcane. Perfect if you want all the spells, but don't know which spells you want. We don't know which. If you want lots of spells, but don't want to confine yourself to one list. Sorry. It gets some bonuses for combining them, though only the lower levels. Then you basically twin cast them. Oh wait, no. No, sorry. Combined spells is, I was misremembering. Compare first level slots from one of the spellcasting classes using second level of the other. Okay, basically lets you borrow spell slots for another schools. From one class to another. Sorry, I was misremembering. I could have sworn there was something that did that. Maybe it was the Oh no. The bonus action I was thinking was spell critical from Eldritch Knight. Okay, the Kineticist. I promised I'd come back to it, and here we are. You get to choose whether you want to be a ranged blaster or a melee blaster. You can focus on melee with Kinetic Knight. You can switch... Okay, this is a Dexterity / Constitution class. If you want to be melee, pick Kinetic Blade and then go into Kinetic Whip, and take the stuff that requires that. And you can also take the area of effect modifiers. The earth element gives you a physical attack, which targets your opponent's regular armor class and does physical damage. Physical attacks do more damage than energy, which is what fire always does. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. You can do either energy or physical damage. Fire always does energy. Air and water both give you a choice when you select the element, and earth always does physical. As you level up, you'll get extra elements. This damage, unlike all other classes, is based on your constitution. And you get infusions, which can boost your attacks. You also get burn, which lets you sacrifice health for permanent buffs, or sacrifice your daily health for daily buffs. For example, if you choose the earth element, then you get a defense so that of damage reduction, meaning you take less damage from physical attacks, and you do physical damage, meaning you will want higher dexterity so that you're more accurate, because you already have higher base damage. Whereas if you choose, say, fire, then you'll be targeting your opponent's weaker touch armor class, and so you'll want higher constitution to do heavier damage, because you're already more accurate. Whereas if you choose fire, then you'll just get the worthless. If enemies who grapple, you take a little damage, but then very few enemies grapple anyway, so who cares? Water is a very defensive element. Earth is a defensive element with some solid attack. Fire is a raw offensive attack element, and and air is a more utility element. The Kineticist doesn't really go much for knowledges, but they can get a little bit of sneaky. Okay. Always get perception if you can. Use backgrounds if you can. Perception and persuasion. Always get those if you can. Okay. Kineticist is the most difficult class, as far as I can tell, because... Actually, no. It is rightly rated as a 5 difficulty class, alongside the Magus, and above even the Druid, and the... Cleric only rated 3. And above even the Shaman. Yeah, spellcasters tend to rate high. Kineticist is sort of a martial, officially. But they are actually casters in a sort. They get, aside from their infusions, they also get other powers. Actually, their infusions allow them to change their blast into area of effect and other various things, called form infusions and substance infusions. Where substance changes the nature of the blast, whereas the form infusions change the shape, like a fan of flames if they choose fire. Which basically makes them dedicated spellcasters, more sorcery than sorcerers are. The sorcerers are supposed to be dedicated to certain spells. And that's about it for the classes. Thanks for watching and have a good day. I invite you to consider the nature of classes in role-playing games. This is the Naismith, signing out.